glad that all of you are here to listen to the lectures and also to participate in this forum today. Okay, I really hope that this session will be very, very engaging. So, I encourage everyone to participate. Well, you don't have to come to the stage, but still you can actually shout if you want from your place. But if you shout, then we're not gonna answer your questions. Well, because who does that, you know? If you want to ask questions, you can raise your hand and then you can speak up and then we will try to answer your questions. Okay? Okay? Alright. Go answer that. Okay. So, I'm going to explain about the format of this forum today. So the forum is about the Clash of Superpowers and how are we relevant in this clash. So when we're talking about we, who are we talking about? Ourselves? Who? China or US? US? Muslim countries? Is it? No. The objective, the main objective of this forum is that we want to talk about we as Muslim youth. So that is the main focus of today's forum. Alright, so we have 2 rounds of questions. The first one will be talking about the talks or the lectures that we have had this morning. And then in the second round, we will talk about youth activism. And then after that, we will have Q&A session before a wrap up. Okay, so everyone clear about the format? Okay, so before we start, let me introduce our panel speakers. So we have 3 panel speakers today. The first one on my left, the tallest one in this room today, I guess. Is it? No. Okay, so his name is Mustapha Ishaq Akinlaso. All right. He's actually from Nigeria. He is currently doing Master of Science in Islamic Finance at the Global University in Islamic Finance, INCEF. He's also a member of Chartered Institute for Islamic Finance Professionals, IIF. Before he joined INCEF, he was doing Masters in Islamic Banking and Finance at the International Institute for Islamic Banking and Finance, Bayero University in Kano, Nigeria. He holds a Bachelor of Science honors in economics from Alhakim University in Kwara State, Nigeria. So what's interesting about Brother Mustapha is that he's a very, very active student, a very active youth. So he's actually the president of the Student Representative Council of INCEF. And during his university undergraduate time, he was also the General Secretary of PEMBINA Muslim Youth Forum in Abuja, Nigeria. All right, on his left, we have the second speaker. This is the third one. Okay, the second speaker is actually Mr. Lukman. His full name is Muhammad Lukman Alhakim Muhammad. He is currently working as a senior engineer in Petronas, Penapisan Melaka, Sdn Bhd. He graduated with Bachelor of Engineering from University of Melbourne in Electric and Electronic. He is currently the Chief of Isma Youth Bureau and also the President of Young Professional Club. During his some background of his activism, he started off during his university times when he joined Malaysian Student Division of FAMC, which is the Federation of Australian Muslim Students and Youth. He was the president, and he was very active in other international initiatives at the university, including the Melbourne University Islamic Society, Australian Islamic Mission, World Assembly of Muslim Youth Australia, and Human Appeal International Australia. So, an interesting thing, he actually was awarded with Student Association Leadership Award in 2005 during your university time. Yeah. All right. So that is our second speaker. And the last one we have today, which comes from this very university, is Mr. Ibrahim Muhammad Hasan. He was he's a former president of PEMBINA. Now he is working in Maybank Islamic Berhad as a senior executive in Shah Advisory. He holds a Chartered Islamic Finance Professionals from INCEF, and he actually graduated with a double degree from this university. That is Bachelor of Economics and Bachelor of Islamic River Knowledge in Sharia, I assume. Mr. Ibrahim? Yes. Okay. So, yeah, he was the president of PEMBINA, which is the National Muslim Youth Association, for 4 years until 2016. So these are the speakers that we have today. So before the first session, let me recap a bit about what we have discussed in the morning. One, we talked about the red giant, and second, we talked about the blue monster, right? Okay, so the first one, talked by Dr. Murad, it's about OBO, which is One Belt, One Road. To summarize, it is actually the revival of the Silk Road, and it's not just about the economic expansion, but it's mainly for political expansion, as explained by Dr. Murad. So that's a bit of the talk by Dr. Murad. And the second one is by Dr. Aslam. It's about the TPPA, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement. He actually explained about how the US economy is doing. It remains pessimistic, sluggish. So they're not doing very well in terms of the economy. So TPPA seems to be a good solution for them to revive their state, the economic state, and also their dominance in the trading area, and also as a global superpower. So basically, TPPA is more on creating rules for international trade, and that will actually affect not just the member states, but also all other countries in the world. That is the summary. Okay, so are we ready for the first round? Okay. All right, so let us start with the first round. I'm going to ask Mr. Mustapha. All right. We have a few questions, so we will start bit by bit. Okay, why is this OBO topic an important discussion for you?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Before I respond to your question, first of all, I thank you for moderating this session, Brother Akbar. And I would also like to thank the professors, the erudite scholars for the enlightening presentation so far, and of course, you, the audience, for your cooperative attention. To begin with, the OBO plan, the OBOR plan, one road, one belt plan, or one belt, one road plan, rather, right? It's something of importance. It's really important because from the discussion in the morning, we are looking at something that is to become the largest economic undertaking after the post-World War, after the Marshall Plan, the post-World War II. And why did I say this? We're looking at an undertaking that encompasses 65 countries. And that even if we are to exclude China and India, yet to be, from the whole gamut of countries in this undertaking, the rest of the country will combine their economic size, their land mass, their human capital, the resources that this country have. It is really, really big. It has huge implication and it is strategic. So of course it will be an interesting thing to discuss. Also, if we're looking forward to the future in terms of economic dominance, we'd want to consider really this overall discussion, or the TPPA as well, because both are economic strategies all about the future. So if we decide, if we feel not to talk about it now, I'm afraid we may be misplacing our priority if we want to have a place in the future. So it is really, for me, it's an important point to discuss. And again, why is it important? Looking at the economic of scale, looking at the trend in terms of the implications, the political implication in terms of security, implication in terms of production and future intergenerational wealth, it is really important.
Okay, so do you believe that China can overcome the US to become the global superpower?
This is quite interesting. There have been a series of talk around this China, US, and tension, and some even build conspiracy theory around it, saying we have the Jews behind the whole scheme, just manipulating two large economies and putting the rest of the economies in between. So you fall either here or there, either ways you're being manipulated. This could be true, but do I believe China really would overtake US? Of course, there have been statistics, there have been research about it, and one very recent that I came across is that from the Pew Research Center, and they hold that 48% of the world, in terms of perception, think China would overcome US as the largest economy in the world. And although there are around 35% rather, of the global population that believe otherwise. But nonetheless, there is no chance. Really, if we look at it, the Chinese economy is growing, and a lot of countries, small countries that used to subscribe to the US economy before, are now subscribing to the Chinese economic model. Simple reason. Before now, we have technologies, we have products, we have household appliances, consumer products that are produced from US, we get it from US. But today, if I were to ask you, if not your shoe or your wristwatch, your specs or your computer, or something about you would have root from China. I hope I'm correct.
Yeah, that would be true.
So
99%.
99%. Oh, I don't know how you come about that statistics, but I agree with it. So the trend is more towards the Chinese economy. And if we go by history, in the 19th century, it used to be the British rule, the Britain were the one controlling the global economy. In the 20th century, we have the America emerging. And now we're talking about the resurgence of the Asian continent. And if we look at the Asian continent, which country will be, say, the leading or the largest to lead the economy? Of course, it is China. So if you ask me if China would be, of course, I go with China. And some said by 2025, some by 2030, some by 2050, that China will come to be the global leader. Depending on who you ask, the majority of the impression backed up with economic justification in terms of productions and all that. Yes, I agree with China. I would go with China if you would ask me.
How about other panel members? Do you believe that China will actually overtake US? Because if you see from history, who leads the economic power would be the countries or the nations that actually pioneering the technology at the time. So for example, the Industrial Revolution, so all the countries who actually invest in this will actually lead the pack, will actually lead the trade, lead the economy. So now in this current 21st century or post-modernism era, what sort of industrial revolution are we talking about? If we see the US, they are actually expanding their technology companies. They are leading the way. We have Tesla, the electrical companies. We're not going to use petroleum anymore. We're going to use electric, for our cars. So, do you think that the US can actually, revive again, or how do you see other speakers?
Okay. Maybe I have a little bit different in terms of my view, my opinion about maybe China will become the next economic superpower. But if we look, first of all, China is quite struggling internally, and their economic growth is stagnant. The pace is slowing down. So that's why I think it depends pretty much on the overall initiative whether they will succeed. And secondly, is in terms of their currency. They are actually manipulating the currency right now. They are undervalued their currency. So in order for you to become an economic superpower, the world must be using your currency. So renminbi is now undervalued. If they are really serious to become the economic superpower, they must be transparent in terms of their currency exchange. And if they do so, it might impede their economy. Well, that's my view.
I think it's really depending on the success of TPPA and OBO to decide who will win in the future. If TPPA really fly off and succeed, most probably US will continue and sustain its superiority in the world. Oppositely, if OBO takes off better than TPPA, I think China can surpass US as economic leader. In terms of currency, even China is looking into applying its currency as a world currency. If you look between China and Russia, they have some coalition and some discussion to use other than US currency when they trade petroleum products and so on and so forth. So it's too early to say who will basically dominate. In my opinion, heavily depending on the result of the PPA and OBO. Then you will know who the real hero.
Thank you for allowing me to chip in. I quite agree with the second speaker regarding putting the judgment in between the war in between TPP and OBO plan. But quite frankly about the currency, if we were to look at it, America of course has enjoyed a lot of benefit using dollar as the global currency. It's tremendously that has accelerated growth in the United States economy. But coming back again to look at the TPPA and the OBO. The OBO plan has been in existence for a very long time, the Silk Road, but it has been in implementation. At least this is the stage 1 of the 3 stages. And right now, since 2013, right now they are getting collaboration from more countries. More countries are interested in the OBO plan, and it looks a bit more promising if you want to compare to the TPPA. The TPPA up till now is still subject to the outcome of the election, the United States election. If, for instance, Hillary comes on board, she has made it clear, made it known that she is not for the TPPA. If she comes on board, it may not work. It may not work, but we're still uncertain. If it were to be Donald Trump, of course, you know what will happen. So we cannot guarantee TPPA. So even basing the world superpower not on current statistics, but on the implications of either TPP or OBO, we still look more towards China. And come to think of it, what each country has to in terms of production capacity. Technology is really important, frankly, no doubt. But even when we talk about technology, the US is leading technology in terms of research. But mind you, the Chinese economy is not far behind. They have a lot of human resources and they have the production capacity to back up whatever technology that is to come on board. But the United States, they have the technology, but they cannot compete in terms of production capacity. If, for instance, they come up with this very interesting technology, new computer gadget, for instance, or software, well, to produce it, the hardware and all these things, usually what do? They outsource it to China. That is why you have your iPhone. Of course, it's United States-based technology, but where is it produced? In China. And the American companies, most of them would prefer to put their production plant outside the United States. Why? The tax system. They eat deeply into their revenue. So there are a lot of factors that if we want to consider would likely go in favor of the Chinese model as against the Blue Giants model. Thank you.
That's quite interesting. When we talk about the US, yeah, you see all the tech companies coming from the States, but in the end, the production are all in China. So I don't know who's gaining from that actually. So perhaps that is why in TPPA, one of the main discussion would be on intellectual property. So that would actually secure the US as they produce the technology, but they don't do the production. But they can value the company more because of the protection of the technology. Okay, but I think more importantly for us to ask to Mr. Mustapha is actually what does it mean for Muslim around the world when we talk about China overtaking the US as a global superpower?
What it means for the Muslim world, I have actually been thinking about it really. And if I were to give you a simple answer, I would say it's inconclusive. I cannot say it will mean well, I cannot say it will mean otherwise. It all depends on how we're able to take advantage of the situation. Frankly, right now, we're not the one leading either the TPPA or the OBO plan, so we cannot say it's in our best interest, either of them. We cannot claim anyone is in our best interest. So what do? We need to assess both. And this time around, we assess from an objective and a collective standpoint. Going in individually, I don't see it beneficial for the Muslim world. You're asking about the Muslim world. Right now, the Muslim world already, we're splintered, we're separated, we're all about ourselves. Unlike the Chinese system, unlike the United States, unlike the European Union, if you go across history, we'll see that most of the superpowers or nations that are leading the world, they come up as a result of unity. They are able to bond themselves together. The Soviet Union before was once considered a superpower because it was still a Soviet Union. The Chinese right now it's fast becoming, China right now is fast becoming a superpower because it has this very strong system. You know, though they say it's not democracy, though they say their type of capitalism is not like the US and all this stuff, but it's still surviving. Why? They are under one umbrella. But the Muslim world, no. So possibly the implication is positive or negative depending on how we go in. It's either we sit up as united as a Muslim world, go in under one umbrella, support each other, and go into either OBO or the TPPA, but most preferably OBO because that's, I don't know, but most preferably OBO. You might say I'm critical of the TPPA, I have my own reason based on assessment, but if we go into one, we don't just go in aimlessly, we don't just go with the tide aimlessly, we go in objectively, we have our fact and figure, we have our own evaluation, we've thought, we have deep thinking about these things before going in. Then it can be to our advantage. But if we just sit back and wait, then it may not be to our advantage. So it really depends on how we react to it.
Okay, so it seems like you are pro-OBO. Well, I think when we talk about OBO projects, for some of the countries, especially in Africa, China has been engaging with these countries and they promise certain projects to build infrastructure. which other Western countries have not done before, and it seems like China is benefiting these countries. They help to build infrastructures, bridges, roads, and everything. Is it because of that you think that China seems as perhaps a savior to your country or other African countries?
Well, talking about Africa, Africa has a deep history of relations with the rest of the world. And when I say a deep history of relations, I mean, if we want to define the relationship between Africa and other parts, for instance, if we want to say the first type of relationship between Africa and Europe or the Western countries is that of slavery. And who enjoys that kind of relationship, if I may ask? But that is history, that is past, right? Now we're talking about the future. Okay, the future. Are we going to say there isn't element of capitalism or exploitation in the current relationship? Of course we cannot say. So it's still existing. So if I'm more critical of the TPPA and in favor of the OBO, you should understand that it's based on what I've seen. And an average man on the street doesn't care what the government is saying. He cares on what he sees. As far as he can have his own food, he can go to his own workplace and put his effort and get paid for it. And from his income, he can pay his bills and send his children to good school and all that. An average man is okay with it. Now, the products coming from America and the rest of the Western countries are more to their own advantage. They sell things to you, you use your money, you pay them, they gain their profit, and that's all. But in the Chinese model, which is they're more economic, their decisions are more on economic base, not on political base. You see them, they come, they said, okay, we have this to offer you, you offer us this back. That is more appealing. Because when they come, they build bridges. When they come, they build roads, they build hospitals and all this stuff. And they take your resources, you think, okay, at least there's something to show for it. Right now, if I would tell you, as at 2015, the second quarter of 2015, statistics came out that the road network built by China in Africa alone is about 9,000 miles. That's like the distance I was mentioning at a discussion. That's like the distance from Egypt, far North Africa, down to Cape Town, which is South Africa, the deepest part, the lowest part in the African in terms of hemisphere. So, yes, truly, the Chinese partnership has more infrastructure, it has more visible projects that we find it to be more appealing than the TPPA, what it may bring for us.
And that's an interesting view by Brother Mustapha. Okay, we continue to our second speaker. Actually, we have many things to talk about, but we cannot, say much. We try to adhere to the time. So the question would be to Mr. Ibrahim. Do you really think that China is America's big threat? And is TPPA an American version of OBO?
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Akbar. Our panelists here and Dr. Murad, I'm glad all of you are here to discuss on our topic, which is the Clash of Superpowers. I think most of us are pretty much aware on TPPA, but I think in terms of OBO, is quite new, even though Silk Road has been quite a history and how China expand their country. So back to your question, whether China is America's big threat. Firstly, we must understand what is behind the OBOR initiative. Why does China plan OBOR? As I mentioned earlier, currently China is struggling in terms of trying to look good in their economic expansion or in their GDP. Currently they are in a stagnant position, and the progress or how they want to move forward. One of the idea is OBO, to initiate OBO, whereby OBO will help them to market their oversupplying products where they have manufactured in China. So now they need a new market. They cannot sustain with the current policy. So they will find out how they can market their product outside China. That is from economic perspective. Now if you look from a geopolitical perspective, other countries other than China, EU and Japan has their trade agreement. America is coming up with TPPA. So China really needs something that can secure or ensure that their trading with their neighboring or other countries is being safeguarded. Maybe we also see some geopolitical tense in South China Sea. So China will ensure that in terms of their trading partners is being secured. So if you ask whether China is a big threat to America, my answer is, well, it's not a big threat right now. The reason being is, first, China and America are two superpowers. Definitely, they will have some clash between these two superpowers, but at certain point, they will bargain on how they can fit both interests, because clash is always associated with cost. They won't bear any further bigger costs if clash is to happen between these two rivals.
So are you saying like there's no possibility of having a World War III?
Definitely they will negotiate the terms, because these two superpowers, if really there is a clash between them, then I think it will impact the whole world. Okay? We can see this from the history of the imperialists, like Malaysia. Previously, Portugal came in and they left. It's not because of there is a war or clash with other imperialists like Holland, right? So there are no negotiating terms, so that both will benefit from the terms. Secondly, China and America are very close trade partners. In 2015 alone, the trade volume between these both countries nearly like USD 600 billion. So why do they need to compete while they are really need each other, right? So there is no need for them to compete. The multinational companies, the MNC, as presented by Dr. Murad earlier, which is based in America, they are very much depending on China, especially in manufacturing goods. So there is a ties between these both countries. And lastly is, if we look as mentioned by Brother Mustapha earlier, I believe the advisor behind these two superpowers are the same. We call the master. The master behind these two superpowers may be the same. Maybe it's the Jews who are actually trying to dominate the world with these two superpowers.
So is this a conspiracy theory or?
I'm not saying that it's only a conspiracy theory, but if we study further, I think we need a separate session if you want to discuss further on this. But if we look how the Jews dominate the world is first by the banks, right? The banks. So who dominate the banks? Even if China is to implement OBO, they will set up a bank first. In Malaysia, how many China banks we have in Malaysia? We have China Infrastructure Bank, specific to provide billions of USD to finance their development, their infrastructure. And the same entity are actually holding the banks all over the world. So I don't see that in the near future there will be a clash. Maybe it is not in line with our topic today, but in the near future I don't see that there will be any clash of these two superpowers. But what we must be mindful of is the threat to the participating countries, the small countries like Malaysia.
Okay, that's an interesting view by Mr. Ibrahim. And again, to you, how do you explain the global geopolitical tension between the global superpowers?
Okay, I think the second question you asked is TPPA an American version of OBO? Like mentioned earlier, some people regards OBO is like China Marshall Plan, even though in terms of the amount spent and also the countries which participate in OBO is much more bigger than what we have in TPPA. But what we must understand is TPPA is not exactly the same version of OBO for some reason. The first is TPPA is a multilateral agreement which is made mutually agreed by the participating country, and it is made clear, it is made visible, and all the terms must be disclosed to all the participating country, even to the public, so we can actually assess and we can study what's the terms being negotiated. Unlike OBO, do we know what's the term? We don't know, because it is a bilateral G2G agreement. It's only between countries, and the agreement is made confidential. Until now we don't know, because one brother asked a question earlier, what kind of project have a link to OBO in Malaysia? We cannot tell, but what we can see physically that happened in our country, as an example, we have our high-speed railway from Singapore to KL. It's part of the OBO plan. And the company who are given the mandate to set up this HSR is a China company, and being funded by the China bank.
So are you saying you don't like the fast train to be in Malaysia? Because it's going to be an express from Sungai Merak to...
Yeah.
It's going to be easier for you.
For me, if it doesn't go through my land, then I'm happy. Because OBO, if you look on the paper, is very fantastic. It's beneficial for the whole country. But if we study further, if we look further on the long run implication, what is the benefit to us? From Singapore to KL, do we enjoy the benefit? Maybe the trading companies that go to Singapore will only enjoy the benefit, right? Secondly, OBO is a capital physical expansion, where physical construction really takes place, while TPPA is only an agreement in the future for their trade purpose. And there's no physical expansion in terms of construction or in terms of investment. So we can see, I think, along the Silk Road and as well as the Maritime Road, China will invest to build their station, their port, and I believe, as what happened, they will source the fund from the China bank, and they will transport their employee from China, and they will bring to the countries. Okay. And lastly, China is reviving its history to market its new agenda. Historically, it's proven that the intention is for power expansion. I think that's the main difference if you can study further on the difference between TPPA and OBO.
So I guess a bit, some conclusion that we can take from here is economically, all these projects seem to bring benefit to the people or to the countries, but what's behind it, from the philosophy that we discussed earlier from Dr. Murad, behind a smile there's a dagger. So yeah, economically it seems benefiting both, but there's a political agenda behind it. So that is something that we need to really look onto from this thing. Okay, we're done with that question. We're going to ask our second panelist, which is Mr. Lukman. Is obor a benefit or a threat, to the Muslim world? And how should Muslims react to global politics?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you, Akbar. Esteemed panelists, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. First thing first, I think OBO or China is a real and big threat to us. Firstly, because we've just lost 2 gold medals in badminton for the past few days. And secondly, on a lighter note, I just want to comment on Olympic. I'm not that kind of, I'm not normally watch sports in television, let alone Olympic, but normally every time I watch, Malaysia lose.
Are you to be blamed for yesterday's?
I'll tell you the reason. I watch double final. So close but yet so far away. We almost win. But because I watch, they lose. Okay, they lost. So because of my love to the country, and I want Malaysia to win the first ever gold in Olympic, so I decided not to watch last night match. Because I know if I watch, most probably Dato' Lim Chow will lose. So I decided not to watch. So I brought out my kid for a dinner in Alamanda, because I promised them to go to that particular restaurant. I don't want to mention the name of the restaurant because it's the foreign company restaurant.
Is it American or?
And we were seated right in front of the big television inside that restaurant. So I have to watch. That's why Dato' Lee Chong Wei lost. Okay, on the serious note, basically, if you look, the threat of China to the Muslim world can be divided into many aspects. I don't want to touch on cultural or religion because it's quite obvious. It's very crystal clear. I'm gonna focus more on the economic, because one of the strong driving force for OBO is to get the energy supply and also the natural resources from other countries to sustain China growth, industrial development. And you also know that OBO will cover 70% of world natural or energy supplies in the world. That's one fact. The second fact is, which country blessed with the most natural resources or energy supplies in the world? The answer is Muslim world. Okay? For example, OPEC. Okay? The members of OPEC mostly are Muslim countries, produce 40% of world oil production, and they have 80% of oil reserve. 80%. Just imagine how much the reserve are in Muslim land. Same goes to, for example, lead. We produce like 47%, copper and rubber. Indonesia and Malaysia combined together produce 75% of rubber production in the world. Indonesia being the biggest Muslim country in the world, with I think close to now it's 250 million. So the biggest Muslim country. So Muslim world having the resources and the energy, and China on the other end wants that. So the rest I leave it to your imagination what will happen if OBO really takes off and the exploitation of natural resources in Muslim land will take place. That's one thing. Secondly is on the security. Okay, because we have been listening that China is building all the infrastructure, all the facilities. Normal facilities is okay, for example road, rails, but the concern is on security of any countries of any nation is the critical national infrastructure. There's a few infrastructure characterized as a national critical. For example, if you have electric generating, all the dam or the hydroelectric, water treatment, the administration of the government, for example Putrajaya or White House, or you have a refinery, all those infrastructure or facilities in any country considered very secretive and need to be protected very seriously. But just imagine, for example, in Pakistan. Pakistan is the second largest Muslim population. Pakistan has the second largest Muslim population. And it is expected in 2030, Pakistan will surpass Indonesia as the biggest Muslim population in the world. Okay, currently the top is Indonesia, and then followed by Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh. But things change, and Pakistan is huge in terms of Muslim population. In Pakistan, China has this agreement called China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. They have invested 46 billion on top of building up all the roads and rails, all the oil pipelines. The most critical part is they're also building hydroelectric to generate electricity in, if I'm not mistaken, the name is Chilam Dam in Pakistan. And it is expected in next 15 or 20 years, half of the electricity of Pakistan will be coming from that particular hydroelectric project. Just imagine that this is very critical. I mean, the electricity which light up the whole nation is built up, developed, and funded by China to the Muslim world, right? And thirdly, from the aspect of government policy or political, it is also clear that Pakistan and Afghanistan, I will focus more on these two countries because first, population of Muslim are big, and then they are neighboring to China. Before we look into the effect of OGO to the rest of the Muslim world, what already happened, this is not something we expect to happen, this is happening in Afghanistan and Pakistan. China has threatened the government of these two countries to mobilize their military to protect all the Chinese workers, all the projects, all their interests in Pakistan and Afghanistan. Meaning, they threaten not to proceed with infrastructure or facilities development if Afghanistan and Pakistan do not contain they call it terrorist or insurgent activities by East Turkestan Islamic movement and some of the Uyghur terrorists. I don't like to use the term terrorists, but for them, all these are terrorists and cause the instability and disunity among the region. Because one of the OGO objective is to promote peace and stability in the region. And it is obvious that Afghanistan and Pakistan is struggling with all this issue, all the guerrilla war, so on and so forth. So China naturally will come, it will penetrate and will interfere with the policy of the government. So I think that this problem is real, it's very concerning, and we need to look into the effect to the other Muslim countries. Maybe not clear yet right now, but for Pakistan and Afghanistan it's very clear, and that's why I conclude that OGO is a big and real threat to us.
Well, that seems quite serious, I think, for us to take note on. So, taking that into consideration, how do you think that Muslims around the world should position themselves? Or you want to have a view? Yeah, sure.
Okay, Sorry if I interrupted there. I just wanted to chip in on what he said. And regarding if China is a real threat to the United States, as Brother Ibrahim responded earlier. In light of what he said, let's imagine OWO coming to be. We have a trade route that cuts across from China down to Europe. That's one part. The other part is on the maritime, on sea. It goes down the same route to Europe. Now, this infrastructure, first of all, was built by the Chinese government. What does this tell us? It tells us that we've granted the Chinese government access to our national land. And with that, they have their staff in place. You never can tell if they have agents in there. Whatever secret, whatever national treasure you have, you should know it will be reported to the headquarters. One. Secondly, we have them build infrastructures. I, for one, coming to know about the Chinese nature, the philosophy of an average Chinese person, which is the dual nature, which I think Dr. Murad mentioned earlier. You have the smiling face, but behind it is a dagger. I'm a little bit concerned to have the Chinese company sponsored by their government to build an airport, which will be maybe the largest in my country, a national airport, so to say, coming to build it. Because they can hold us on that account to sign certain terms. They can use that to influence certain political decisions in my country. If we refuse, like the case of Pakistan, as brother mentioned, they constructed this hydroelectric dam, right, this source of electricity. If there's any rift between them, they have all the plans and manuscripts. They're just gonna push the button, shut down electricity. That is the beginning. If they're the one that construct the airport, then they shut down the airport. No entry, no exit. Double problem. In other words, what I'm trying to say is, if this plan come to be, it really posits China as a stronger economic power than the United States, because theirs is just trade agreement. It's nothing apart from trade. After trade, that's all. If China can become the biggest economy, or has the potential to become to dominate the global economy in that way by using OBO, definitely China is a very strong threat against the United States. So that's just something I would like to chip in. But again, in light of what have been discussed, where do we lie as Muslims? Collectively now, as I mentioned earlier, if 80% of the world oil reserve is in the Muslim land. In fact, a brother at a presentation I heard, he made this joke, which happens to be real. He said, if you're in the sky and there is no, if the geologists that used to look for soil, do the forensic and to discover if there's soil on the earth, under the earth or not. So what they just need to do is just go to the land, try to look at the people. If they look around and they find a Muslim in that land, yes, there is good oil there. That's one of the signs to know there is oil. If we have such amount of resources, why can't we just collectively, put ourselves together and do something good? Apart from that, this is something I found out by myself in the research about oil. Most Muslim countries that are not producing oil, they are located, they have this strategic location in the oil trade routes. And there are 3 of them. Malaysia, of course, has oil, but it doesn't have it in commercial capacity. It doesn't export as the likes of Saudi or even Nigeria and the likes. But Malaysia is located central to the oil routes in Southeast Asia. Egypt is another one, and Turkey is another one for the European oil. Now we have these Muslims, those that don't even have sufficient oil, if we're talking about oil resources, but they're strategically located. Okay, so why can't we just use this? It's up to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so back to Brother Lukman, how do we position ourselves as Muslims?
He has stolen my point. But anyway, I'm coming to that actually. What should we do as a nation or as a Muslim Ummah? First of all, we have to get out from our comfort zone and defending mode, and instead we should have attack. Even our title of Are We Still Relevant give a bad connotation to me. We should have come up with a better. Are we still relevant? Sounds to me as defending mode. We should have attack, because the best defense is offense. And to dig out why and how should we react and where we should position ourselves, we should first study why United States of America and China can become a superpower. First, because they have the military strength and also the advancement of technology, because they hold the technology and the military power. And if you look back during the Islamic Empire, golden era, we also have the same strength. So this is the element of power we need, and this is what Al-Quran and history taught us, that we have to have power and military strength for us to move forward. So it is quite obvious. So we need to slowly but surely build up this capacity as a Muslim nation. Okay. Secondly, it's on the nationalism. Because just now we heard one of the speakers say China or Chinese is very strong in terms of the unity, and they regard non-Chinese as a barbarian or barbaric or some lower standard as compared to their nation. So we have to have this sort of a unity or the proudness of being a Muslim, and this is the core factor for unity, because now Muslim in the whole world, being the biggest population, we are I think close to 1.5 billion. Okay, but we work in isolation. We are not united. Okay, whereas all the superpower, they have coalition, they have proxies. Okay, they work together. They have big networking. That's why they can succeed and they can be on top of us. For example, the more practical things like, why don't we revive OIC? Okay? And why don't, for example, we, instead of joining OBO or TPPA, we create another platform only for Islamic countries, which have a lot of natural resources and we have the numbers. I mean, the market is there for Muslims. We have, in fact, the biggest market in the world because our population is the biggest. So why not we form some sort of EU for Muslim countries in terms of economy, okay, to fight with OBO and to fight with TPPA, for example. And also from the aspect of knowledge, we need to have a transformation, the social reform and organization reform in terms of, for example, jurisdiction, the rules and regulation, all the ijtihad, okay? Because we are facing with the fast-changing world, and Islam is very flexible religion. We need to produce more scholars that can solve the problem of the ummah, okay? So knowledge is the core function that we as a Muslim country or Muslim ummah need to focus on. From knowledge, we can develop technology. From technology, we can produce a military strength. And from military strength, we can basically revive the strength or the strength or the ummah itself. So it's not something new. We don't need rocket science to figure out what we should do. Okay, just study back the history of Islamic golden era, what US and China is having right now that makes them superpowers. And all this, the element of power are already there in the Quran. If you study Quran, all the military strength, all the knowledge aspect, all the nationalism is in the Quran, in Islamic teaching. Islam does not acknowledge, in fact, nationalism, okay, brotherhood. And last but not least, the social transform, organization transform. We need to change. Okay, today if we do not be part of the change, others will change us. In short, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lukman. One interesting thing that he talked about was the about OIC. He said that maybe as Muslim countries we should actually unite, create something like EU, and have and encourage trading between countries, and perhaps we can have our own currency and things like that. Actually, last time, if I'm not mistaken, Tun Mahathir, he actually suggested that the OIC to introduce their own currency, which is, I don't know, but it's something like dinar or something like that. But I don't know what happened to the idea, because OIC is just OIC, so yeah, I cannot say much. But then he actually tried to suggest to ASEAN as well, ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. So he actually suggested that as well, but of course it's harder because we have so many differences in our region. Alright, so that's actually the end of round one. Are we still okay to go to round two? Okay, yeah? Alright, yes, okay. I think this session, this second round will be more important to us because the theme would be about youth activism. So what we hope from this round is for us to discuss about what we need to do as youth, as Muslim youth. What are the practical actions that we need to take? All right, so we go to the first question for round two. I'm going to ask Brother, who's the first one? Brother Ibrahim, Mr. Ibrahim. Okay, what do you think are mainly lacking in Malaysian Muslim youths?
Okay, thank you, Brother Akbar. Brother Lukman has given a nice explanation on the threat of Obor itself, and added by Brother Mustapha. I'm just adding some more points when Brother Lukman mentioned about the railway and as well as the highway that will go through the participating countries. Although it's a physical construction that maybe is not giving any threat to the countries, but if you look into the history as explained by Dr. Murad, they build pavilion along the highway. So this pavilion will be transformed into military posts when they are facing a threat from other countries. So actually, when they are doing something, there's always something behind. They are smiling to us, but actually we need to study further. There's what's the real intention behind it. So I think in certain situation where they think they need to use it, they can easily, quickly access their military to the countries, right? When they think they need to do it. So we must be very, very cautious. I'm not anti-China, but when we discussing on the threat, then we need to really point out what's the possible outcome from the infrastructure. Coming back to the question, Brother Akbar. Actually, I'm facing very difficult time, very tough time to understand what's the main lacking in the Muslim youth in Malaysia. I'm involved in many, many sessions with other youth organizations. I'm trying to understand what's the real factor behind it. after sometimes I realized that maybe the main lack in our Muslim youth in Malaysia is an ability to determine our own agenda. That's the lack that we have. Though we have, they have their own agenda, right? But their agenda is more toward their personal agenda rather than the agenda that is obliged to us as the Khalifa, upholding the Islamic system in the world. So, though they have their own agenda, but it doesn't go in line with the agenda that we supposed to do. Okay, pursuant to this, I think the impact to our Muslim youth in Malaysia is that they lost their identity, hilang jati diri. So when they lost their identity, they view that other ideology is more superior than the one that they supposed to bring in. They neglect the Islamic system, and they feel inferior when they say, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Malay. So this lack or loss of identity is the main implication when they don't have their own agenda. When we look at our youth here, they are looking high towards the Western ideology. In understanding the current situation, they will refer to the Western ideology. Okay, so now like Brother Lukman mentioned, we have TPPA, we have OBO, but why cannot we come up with our own platform? They cannot think towards that idea. Okay. Secondly is disunity. Even for the basic principle of Islam, we disunite. Take it as our belief, right? Our aqidah. We always argue about, these people is Wahhabi, this is Bid'ah, this is Salafi, this is very basic principle in Islam. We disunite. Okay, not talking about other issue like political power, political inclination. Just because of different in political power, we cannot unite in a very important issue. Okay, and we have problem here in determining who's our real enemy, because we disunite. And the third one is we unable to identify any possible threat, because we are living in a comfort zone. We are striving to gain our personal agenda. Okay. So when we are unable to identify the real threat that we face today, so we just live like there's nothing against us. Okay, this come to the from the hadith where I believe we must achieve this we call as wisdom. Al-hikmatu dalatul mu'min haythu wajaduha fahuwa ahaqqu biha. Right. So the wisdom is the lost property of the believer. So wherever we find it, then he has the right to it. So we must gain back the wisdom. Wisdom is not only about knowledge. Wisdom is about you contemplate, you try to critically analyze the issue. You must understand the reason behind it. You need to really squeeze your brain, your mind, to understand what's the reason behind it. And not on the looking into the surface and we already have our judgment on it. Okay. So when we talk about wisdom, we are actually in nowadays we are facing. You have to understand the fact that our law of nature is the clash of superpower. Okay, when we have our own agenda, we want to uphold our own agenda. Definitely, we will face at a certain point where we will clash with other agendas. Okay, so coming to my third point is all of us here and outside, our youth, our Muslim youth in Malaysia and all over the country, we must be prepared for the clash of agenda. The clash of agenda between Al-Haq and Al-Batil. This is from the history of Islam until now. there have been a lot of clash, but now because we are not the superpower, that's why we haven't reached the limit where we are going to have a clash with other superpowers. So we need to have a preparation. We have to prepare ourselves. وَأَعِدُّوا لَهُمْ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُم مِّن قُوَّةٍ, in terms of military, in terms of ourselves, our potential in ourselves, our knowledge, our skills, so that we can develop ourselves. And I think another solution that we may suggest for the clash of superpower is for Malaysia to be a self-sufficient country. Or the Muslim countries must be self-sufficient, so that we don't need to depend on either China or US, and we can say no to OBOR or TPPA. Wallah.
That's a very interesting conclusion, you can say. So yeah, I think when we talk about the clash of superpowers, in the end, you know, in Islam, what we understand is there will always be a clash between the right and bad, the good and bad, which is Alhakim and Batil. And it actually comes from the very beginning of the human race, which is Adam and Iblis. So yeah, it's something for us to ponder about, and how do we actually reflect that in our today's scenario. What is the clash that we have actually in our lives? So we talked about the what are the lackings. Now, okay, as having an experience in youth activism in university, so what do you think are the potentials that Muslim youths have, and what should they do to make them shine?
Okay, I think the Muslim, especially Muslim youth in Malaysia, they have a lot of potential. I'm relating to my first point just because they don't have a clear agenda of their own, the true agenda. Our Muslim here, we work in several sectors. We are working in private sectors, in government sectors. Like mentioned earlier, Maybank is one of the largest banks in Asia. I think we can go further if we have that agenda. Then, if we have that agenda, then we can discuss further what need to be achieved. So I think in terms of potential, in terms of skills, we are at par with other Muslim youth in other countries. Just we need to go out from our comfort zone to think big. When we have agenda, we will think big, and small matters will not be will not hinder our agenda. So I think moving forward, we can engage more of our youth to discuss further about this clash of superpowers and what happened in our geopolitics world, so that they have a bigger agenda. They can really maximize their potential, and we can inshallah move forward.
That's a very good conclusion. So the main point I would say is agenda, right? Agenda for Muslim youth. So if we want to talk about agenda, I mean, if we see our youth today, what sort of things that they are into or what they are talking about among themselves? Well, I'm asking the audience, do you mind sharing some of the things that, you know, all the youths are talking about today? Sorry, what? What? TPPA? Wow. It's a hashtag, is it? No, what do you think they are talking about? Pokemon Go, alright. What else? Huh? Fun things. Fun. Okay, anything that is fun for them. I don't know, for UIA, I think many people have been following IIUM confessions. Yeah, I think, you know, these are small things actually that we put as, you know, one of the main agendas in our life. Because we have been following things like this. Why don't we actually talk about, you know, these things, TPPA, OBOR? It's not in the minds of our youths, right? It is not. So it is something that we need to ponder about. Even as today, though I congratulate everyone coming here, I know talking about things like this is not fun. It's a bit boring, you know. Some people got bored and they can fall asleep. That's the truth, you know. That's the truth. You know, even me. Okay. All right.
If I may add to the points, I think nowadays we are looking more to a materialistic life, and this always has been the agenda of the capitalists. That's why when they mention about economy, it's about infrastructure, it's about manufacturing, it's about producing new goods. And these things sometimes keep us busy to think about the big agenda. Now we are, well, you mentioned about Pokemon Go. I think there's a lot of entertainment that we have today, which actually, if we can think big, this small thing, we can just put it aside. So, well, a part of OVO and TPPA is a trade agreement. They are supplying their goods to our country. So something that we must think of.
Yeah, I think Pokemon Go is actually a good example because you can see, yeah, many people are utilizing it, you know, consuming, yeah, using the game, playing the game, or whatever. Especially, including us, the Muslim youth, we are also a part of it. But you know, in the end, who are actually inventing it? We are just consumers. We are just consuming it. We are not even inventing it. We're not even, you know, be part of the smart guys who actually, you know, produce all these kind of things. To reflect that, not just Pokemon Go, in everything, you know, all the softwares, all the technology, we are only the users. We don't produce the technology, right? So we only talk about how to use them. We don't even talk about how to create them, right? So it's something that us, you know, Muslim youths need to reflect, to ponder, and think about. Okay, so that's the question for Brother Ibrahim. Thank you for those answers. Now, I want to ask Mr. Lukman, Brother Lukman, do you think that Muslim youths are really far behind in comparison to the youth in other developed countries? And how can the Muslim youths position themselves at the global stage?
I have two versions of answers. I just would like to see some show of hand. Who think, whether you think we are more superior, I mean Muslim youth are more superior, or the youth in more developed nations like the US, Australia, Japan, South Korea, who are better? Can I have show of hand? Who think Muslim youth is better? Okay, thank you.
Wow.
Who think the other way? Who thinks we are lag behind and okay, only few. Okay, and one of the guy who think Muslim are lag behind currently study in UK, eh?
It's a bit of a bias there.
Okay, currently he's studying in UK. Okay. So basically, in my personal opinion, I think by nature we are more superior. By default, we are more superior. Muslims are more superior, mainly because we have Islam. Islam is the best religion, and the Ummah of Islam should be the best Ummah. That's number one. I think all of us believe this, but when we compare this concept to the real world, what's happening, we are seeing statistics, all the achievements, even in Olympics, if you're talking about achievement in sports. Yes, Muslim countries or Muslim youth are lagging behind in terms of capability and capacity. I just want to give you some flavor by bringing in few statistics. For example, one statistic called Human Development Index. This statistic was developed by UNDP, United Nations Development Program. So they have this some sort of complex or calculation. They have all the weightage, all the internal, external factor. They consider the life expectancy, education attainment, and also salary or income of all nations inside all nations in the world, and they give one number called HDI, Human Development Index. So on top of the list are all Western countries. Okay, I think Finland, Australia, and Iceland somehow they are top in the rank, but the highest Muslim countries in the list is Kuwait. Okay, Kuwait I think is number 33. Qatar is 35, and UAE, all the Middle East countries. Yeah, 30 plus. Not bad, but we are lagging behind. Okay, far behind actually. But you have to bear in mind, all these countries are not the biggest Muslim population, because like I mentioned earlier on, Indonesia, Pakistan, India, and Bangladesh is the biggest in terms of Muslim population, and all these countries are bottom on the list. So we are still, in terms of this statistic, okay, you can debate whether this is this benchmarking is developed by them and it is biased, so on and so forth. You can argue on that angle, but why not we just face the brutal fact and move on? Okay? So maybe we can serve this as a wake-up call for us to see where we are standing and what we can do to move forward. And another interesting statistic is on the IQ, the national IQ score. So which nation has the highest IQ? Okay, so on top of the list are Korea, Singapore, and also Japan. Okay. The highest Muslim countries, surprisingly, is Kazakhstan. Somehow Kazakhstan people are smart. They're quite genius. Okay, Kazakhstan is number 5. Kazakhstan is number, I think 12, 11 or 12. Okay, and second among Muslim countries is Malaysia. Okay, so guys, you are not that bad. We are quite brilliant. Okay, brother Mustapha is from Nigeria. I think Nigeria also on top of the list, higher than Malaysia. Okay, higher than Malaysia. Mongolia is not Islamic country, but Mongolia, we have different perspective or impression on Mongolia, right? But no, Mongolia is the 5th on the list based on this statistic. And third Islamic countries is Brunei. Okay, so we're still lagging behind in terms of IQ score, in terms of, if you look at university rank in the world, okay, health status, so on and so forth. So that is statistic, it's one thing, but based on my personal experience, and any of you guys who studied abroad have experience working and dealing, negotiating with your counterparts. I went to Singapore, I went to Australia, I went to the US for work trips, negotiation, presentation, and my personal view is they are no brighter than us. They are not better than us. We have the capacity, we have the capability. It's just that due to two main reasons we are lagging behind. First, there's a vast gap, or should I say deep chasm, between Muslim on one hand and Islam on the other hand, meaning majority of Muslims do not practice Islam. Okay, even if they practice Islam only in the worship scope, personal scope, whereas we understand Islam is a system, a complete system, holistic system for life. Secondly, because we used to be great, but since the fall of Islamic Empire, and the fragmentation of Muslim land, the colonization, long period of colonization, and then the psychological war, continuous and intensified psychological war against Muslim and Islam. So we lost our identity. We lost, most important thing, our confidence. Okay, but I'm glad I see more show of hand when I ask Muslim is more superior than other youth in developed nations. So the confidence is there. I hope not only in this room, but all our friends and Muslim youth all around the world have the same confidence that we are in fact more superior in all aspects. It's just that the history is not on our side. We have gone through a long period of colonization. Our land has been fragmented, and we have been divided. We have been denied the right for education, so on and so forth. Even with this kind of condition, we can still see a lot of best students in foreign university. For example, recently we heard in Korea, in India, even in the United States, a lot of top students. Even when I was studying in University of Melbourne, Australia, during my days, a lot of top students in the faculty are Muslim, whether from Pakistan or from Malaysia or from Indonesia, but they are top in the faculty, and some of them are top in the university. So this is, I can say, the light at the end of the tunnel. I think we can really be the best, okay, if we have the power, if we can control our education system, and we can control the affair of all Muslim countries. So how? The next question is, how do we do that? So we have to, like I said, start with the knowledge. Can I have show of hand? Who inside this room is holding a book, for example? Okay.
Or maybe e-book.
E-book is not counted. E-book is not counted. Smartphone is not. Facebook is no. Okay. So reading, for example, is not our culture. So don't talk about knowledge or e-knowledge when we don't even read. We don't even read. So how do we want to develop a knowledgeable and sophisticated nation, ummah, whereas Islam and Quran ask us to read, to become the subject matter expert, to be knowledgeable. Before we talk about being a military force and strong technology power, we have to first read. We have to build up our capacity and capability in terms of technical. Go to the highest level of certification or studies or certificate. So this is what really we need to do. Secondly, on the nationalism, okay, I think this platform, this forum also, on top of try to give a knowledge or awareness to the youth, we also try to mix up with other nationality, although there's not many of them in this room. I'm not sure how many. There's one upstairs, up in the stage, but not many foreign students or foreigner are with us. But if you want to really look into the ummah condition, go for Hajj. Go for Hajj. Okay, whoever went for Hajj, you know what I mean, because you can see Muslim all around, from all around the world, and you can see their character, their personality, how they behave, their cleanliness, the way they treat people, their discipline. You can see all this, and you can contemplate and think and get to learn something. In fact, a lot of things from this condition. Okay, so unity is very important. We cannot unite before you understand others. Okay, because people don't care how much. People don't know how much. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So you have to learn about other culture, about other nationality, about other Muslim countries. We have to reach out, okay? Reach out, go travel overseas and meet other Muslim, learn from them, discuss, and be active. Last but not least is on the Islamic knowledge. When you want to do social transformation, or you want to come up with new ijtihad, the way we should maneuver, whether this is permissible or not, you need knowledge. Okay, so not only scholars but every individual need to develop this Islamic knowledge within us, so that we can become a better nation, inshallah, by these three factors. First, knowledge, that I mentioned. Secondly is on the unity, our strength, our togetherness, our brotherhood. And thirdly, and last but not least, the knowledge of our deen, our religion, Islam. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lukman. So to summarize again, one is knowledge, second is unity, and third is Islamic knowledge. Okay, so these are the things that we need to focus on as Muslims. All right, we go to the last question for the second round. Okay, we're going to ask Mr. Mustapha, why activism is important for Muslim youth?
Why activism is important for Muslim. Okay, beforehand, since we're talking about superiority and we dive into IQ, I also want to brag a little bit about Nigeria. In terms of individual, this is something I come to know, and sometimes when you're privileged to have lunch or to engage yourself with people like Dr. Murad and Dr. Aslam, you gain knowledge basically. These are the sort of engagement that we want. So one of the first things he told me about my country when he met me was about, oh yeah, Nigerians are quite brilliant. They're really smart. The 5th most intelligent person is from Nigeria. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a Nigerian, but I don't know that. And actually this guy, in terms of individual ranking, he mentioned about national ranking. An individual ranking, truly a Nigerian, I checked the fact, is the 5th with an IQ of 195. Albert Einstein is said to be something around 160 and above, but not clearly defined. So someone like Srinivas Ramanujan, the brilliant Indian mathematician, is somewhere around 180 plus. So if we have someone at this era, 195, come on please, let's clap for Nigeria, please. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. But back to business. Why activism is important. Looking at I think from the discussion of Brother Lukman and Brother Ibrahim, I think we have our answers as to why activism is important, especially for the Muslim. And when we talk about the Muslim, we trickle down to the Muslim youth. But what I would just want to a little bit emphasize on is the concept of activism itself. When we talk about activism, the image that is likely to come to our mind is that of flag waving in the air or fist pumping, like, no, we want change, we want political reform, we want economic justice. That is the sort of thing that comes to mind when it comes to activism. Well, that's true, but not the whole truth. That's just some part of activism, but not the entire part of activism. And if we were to define or to describe activism, basically in simple language, I would say it's just any effort to ensure what is good and right and to prevent what is bad and wrong. As simple as that. Effort to ensure that which is good and right and to deter or to discourage or to prevent or to forbid that which is bad and wrong. If we can do that, then we can label ourselves as activists. Now, this effort itself should be something human, it should be something logical, it should be something real. It could be dynamic, it could be crazy, it could be whatever it is, as far as it still remains human. Meaning we don't infringe on other people's rights as Muslims or as human beings. We don't deprive them of their humanity in the process. And why is it important? What comes to mind now is actually, and actually this one, if you would indulge me, I would like to go into the Quran a little bit and see what we can derive from there in terms of activism. But beforehand, historically, the Prophet ﷺ started as an activist. He's the most influential person in history of mankind. And it's not by him worshipping Allah all day long in Kaaba or in Masjid al-Nabawi. It's not by him just raising hand and receiving revelation. No, it was actually by him commanding on that which is good and forbidding that which is wrong. Enlightening people on how to do things right and enlightening people on things that are wrong that they should not be indulging, they should not be involved in. That is the beginning of activism, and he is the ideal role model for activism. As a Muslim youth, activism, I find it to be something of utmost importance because it is embedded right at the fundamental or at the core of our religion. Forgive me for using the word fundamental. I try to watch myself when I'm using certain words these days, not out of fear of whatever repercussion, but out of fear of misconception. But let's go into the Quran that I mentioned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned about superiority that Brother Lukman also mentioned about. He said, is Muslims, are we superior as against the non-Muslim, the Muslim youth? A lot of people rose up and said, yes, truly I agree with you. It's based on knowledge that you say that. In theory, we are. By virtue of Islam, he has emphasized on that. And Brother Ibrahim also said that too. But in practical, we cannot say that buoyantly. We have some reservation when we are saying that. We ourselves were cautious of saying it because we are not confident enough that it is true. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned that we are the best of nations. He said, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhawna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. He said in the Quran, Surah Al-Imran, he said, you are the best, the very best of nation brought forth for mankind. Mankind, the entire human race from beginning till the end. This is across location and across time. We are the best. Which ummah is he talking about? The ummah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And why is this? He gave the reason. There are three reasons in the same verse. Ta'muruna bil ma'ruf, you command that which is good. Wa tanhawna 'anil munkar, and you forbid that which is wrong. Wa tu'minuna billah. On top of that, you believe in Allah. Now we have these three elements to define activism. And look at the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and all of the prophets that come before the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and tell me if these three elements are not there. They are there, but yet we are labeled as the best. Why? Because collectively we do it. If we look at the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam, he's one of the Ulul Azmi among the prophets. His nation were not called so because he was the only one that is calling for that which is good, that is trying to prohibit that which is wrong. Prophet Musa had quite a number of people, but majority are still not on his side. Prophet Isa alayhi salam, Prophet Shu'aib, Prophet Ayub, and so many of them we can keep counting. But these prophets on their own, individually, they are activists. the process for me, the process of raising a prophet on its own is activism. Activities of the prophets and those that came before him are all activism. So as a Muslim, what should be more important than the concept of activism? And either we like it or not, either we believe it or not, we are activists in some way, somehow. We spending our time, our effort, and our resources, our financial resources to study, to learn, is a way of activism because we're trying to know that which is right. But it's not just fully, we haven't been able to implement it such that it will have impact on people because we haven't been able to reach out to them to tell them. Maybe our intention is maybe just to get the degree and work. But even if we work, we obviously want to get married and want to start procreating, and we want to guide the kids as well. So maybe in that process, nurturing a child in the way of Islam is an effort towards that which is good. That in itself is activism. But we need something more dynamic. We need something more trendy. In the previous discussion, we mentioned something about, I'm not sure if it's Brother Lukman or Brother Ibrahim, you mentioned something about we are Pokemon Go, for instance, that we are consumers of Pokemon. And I read something about the guy who authored, who designed Pokemon. This guy has actually been there for 20 years. He has been from one stage to another, trying and failing until he hit the jackpot. And now the rest of us, we're all crazy about it. But this is what comes to my mind while he was talking about it. I don't know if we're all familiar with the game called Dota. Right? I know you guys, of course. Dota is an interesting game. What about the Three Kingdoms? Okay, maybe I didn't get it right. Or the Seven Kingdoms? Or the Nine Kingdoms? Okay, maybe I don't know about them. But okay, I got to know this about from my housemate, actually. He's usually very, he plays this game passionately. He's very passionate about this game. He has his schedule and he has online partners which they convene to play that game. Even though they are in different countries, they have this time that, yes, this is the time we all play. So he doesn't mess around. He can do whatever academic assignment. Once it's that time, he doesn't mess around with it. Now they play that Dota. Then I was asking him, and he's, mashallah, is a very smart person and really intelligent, very current. I enjoy, conversing with him. You gain knowledge by talking to this kind of person. And I asked him, why are you so fascinated about this game? He said, it's interesting, you just won't understand. And okay, what's there for me not to understand? Then he started telling me about the evolution of the game, what it's about. And in the course of our discussion, he dived into the Chinese history. And he was telling me, mentioning the names of people who existed during the Han Dynasty, this dynasty, that dynasty. And you study history so much, how do you know this? He said, no, I learned it from the game. From the game. And then he told me, oh, I haven't played it. There's this game called, I'm not sure if it's the Three Kingdom, the Seven Kingdom, or the Nine Kingdom. I just know it's something about some kingdoms uniting themselves. And it's actually about the Chinese history. Now, how many games have we seen out there that is about the Islamic history, the Sahabas, the beautiful stories, the amazing stories about the Ghazawat, the war during the time of the Prophet ﷺ. How many have we seen? None. To be honest, to be fair to Islam, I've seen something similar, but that is a card game. It's a card game. They ask you a question about the Sahaba. If you get it right, you get some point. If you get it wrong, you don't get the point. You pass it to the next player. There's a game close to that. I've forgotten the name, but no one does that. We've advanced, We're into video games, real life video games, not paper, card games and all that. So even we Muslims, we try to adopt that, but still, we're what? We're behind. But we need activists. If that is certain skill set that you've acquired, then it is important for you to use it in the way that it benefits the Ummah. So it is really important to be, activism as a whole is an important phenomenon for Muslims. I hope I have not digressed too much. I'm sorry I took your time.
Yeah, thank you, Brother Mustapha. So from that point on activism, so the point that you talked about is, in the end, activism is very important, but the main question then to ask is, what sort of activism? What sort of activism that Muslim youth should actually venture into?
Well, I made mention about activism in form of protest, or activism in form of designing a game or something. Actually, activism are of various kinds, and really we cannot say, as a Muslim, you should go into this line of activism. If we all go in that direction, we'll find out that there'll be a lot of things we would have left behind. So I wouldn't say there's a clear-cut type of activism, but there are various types of activism that we can do. At the end, it boils down to those three elements. If we can combine them for one subject or anything, then we have performed activism, be it in our campus, be it in our field, be it with our talent, be it whatever it is. In the process, in whatever we design, we embed something that encourages that which is good, we embed in it something that prevents that which is wrong, and we associate it to Allah, who is our divine creator. If we can do that, then whatever activities we do, that activism will be of Islam. But more importantly, as Muslim youth, something that I've learned, really, being around in many youth camps and youth activities, is that self-development is really, really important. It's central to all this. Self-development in terms of knowledge acquisition, self-development in terms of skill set acquisition, self-development in terms of talent development itself is by way central to the concept of activism. You don't want to go out there and try to do something, but you're limited because you lack the skills. You don't want to go out there, even though you have the loud voice and the brave mind, you don't want to stand and start calling for reform. Meanwhile, upstairs, you're bankrupt. You don't want that. You need to acquire this knowledge, you need to acquire the skill set. We not about you even anymore, because I'm like excluding myself, but we need to do that. We all need to put our hands together. Maybe in terms of knowledge, you're better than me. In terms of skills, I'm better than you. In terms of physique or something, he's better than us. If we're able to combine this together, then our activism will make more sense and the impact will be lasting. So the activism that we should engage in, something we should engage in for our activism is self-development. And the activism that we should engage in is anything that has those three elements that I mentioned earlier.
That's a very, very good answer. Yeah, because if you want to reflect from the seerah, from Prophet Muhammad, if you want to extract the story about activism, then the Prophet would be the best example, and even not just Prophet Muhammad, but also all the prophets. These are examples of activism. What they do is basically these three elements, and we can see the impact. Like Prophet Muhammad, started off receiving the wahyu, and then what happened is that just 20 to 30 years later, Islam is significant to the world. So yeah, we can see that is the kind of activism that we talk about, and a big lesson to it is are we actually indulging ourselves in the right kind of activism, and are we doing the right thing? Right. Okay, so I think we have finished with the 2 rounds. We want to open the floor to all the audience to ask questions. Especially, it's not easy to get all these distinguished speakers and to ask questions. So, do we have any questions?
Brother Mustapha has different opinion on the Obor because he's from Africa. Africa has not, sorry. Brother Mustapha has different opinion about Obor than the TPPA because he's from Africa. TPPA has nothing to do with Africa. It's way out of the zone. And then when it comes to Obor, there is not much, threat to Africa. But instead, it fulfills certain requirements, certain vacuum that needs to fill in when the European left. So what I want to talk about the Obor, the threat is, as I mentioned just now, is specifically to certain nation. Our threat by the Obor is different from Philippines or even Thailand or even Vietnam. For us, the problem is the Obor is because we have some domestic issue. The population of Malaysian Chinese is 25%. Okay, this is the problem. They tried to take over our politics in the past, and they still persist to have that dream. So they are dragging China to come into the scene. So that's why they are making use of relationship with China through Obor to strengthen their political position. Okay, what I want to tell you about is the Malaysian Chinese
Islam nation. Like as we speaking, we are wearing, and all around us are from China. And as we speaking, we speak English language. Both has been part of us, but it's not easy. It's not easy, but we have to be aware the real threat and the serious issue that we are facing. The only benefit that I can see from these 2 superpowers are they serve as a wake-up call for us. This is a real alarming wake-up call for all Muslims to revive, okay? To build up the strength, to get the power and to move forward. We can choose to be one of this group. The first group is people that make things happen. Second group, people who are watching or seeing things happen. And the third group is people who, I see some of these people inside this room, they fall asleep throughout the whole presentation, and then when he wakes up, he asks, what happened? What happened? Instead of making things happen or seeing things happen, they just ask what happened. They are clueless and they don't know what is happening. So let's be the first group, the Muslim youth who are very aware on what is happening and make things happen. Thank you.
Now I invite Mr. Ibrahim for a talk.
Okay, thank you. I think just before we end our session, just a little survey. Who in this room has a degree in political science or foreign affairs? Anyone? No, right? Maybe others? Tak nampak. Oh, belakang. Okay, good. Or maybe we know some of our relatives who are taking political science or foreign affairs. Why I'm asking this question is because I think maybe this is one of the cause, or this is one of why we are not aware of what we are discussing today. Just to share my experience, when I went to Turkey, we met with some of our young people from AKP, AK Party. So for us in Malaysia, when we further our study in university, what is the most popular course do we take? For boys, usually engineering, right? For girls, medicine, right? Medic, right? So I think in Malaysia, for quite sometimes, our background study shows that we neglect some of the important field. Because when I went to Turkey, most of their youngsters, the popular subject is political science, foreign affairs, what else related to that subject. Okay, so I think moving forward, if we can put some weightage or we can encourage our generation, maybe it's quite late for us, but we still have time. I mean, we can discuss further on how to have some reform in our education or related to our study among our youngsters, so that we can have a bigger picture on what's happening in geopolitical environment, so we can know what is the real plan or the real strategy that is happening around us. So I think if we leave this platform as just a discussion platform, I think it's a waste to us. So after this session, maybe we can study or make a research further on OBO, and we can share with our friends and colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's a very, very good point. So anyone, I mean, other than foreign affairs, anyone from social science background? Oh my God, seriously? Only one? Wow. Well, yeah, you can see the biasness there. So, yeah, make sure that your children take social science. But not everyone, I'm saying, just to encourage. All right, so to the last person here, I would like to invite Mr. Mustapha to give his conclusion.
Really, what's to be said has been said, but there could still be more or something else to be said. But Lukman said it wisely. He said we Muslims should be participative. We should be Muslim youth should try to increase our awareness for us to be relevant. And I also agree with Brother Ibrahim about we also increasing our awareness in terms of our choice of course of study. We should diversify. We shouldn't be one-sided. You know, we shouldn't go with the trend of what's, you know, we should try to know what's happening. We should diversify. It's really important. But even in that diversification, I just want to share, I mean, we've wrapped up what's needed to be wrapped up. I would like to say something regarding Prof. Murad's comment. I quite agree with what he said regarding considering the geopolitical situation around this place. And truly that may not be applied to Africa. But even in Africa, we still have certain threats. But it's just that at this stage, we are quite, the offer, so to say, is appealing. But we know this will be just for the short term. But in the long run, we might need to start reconsidering what we accept and what we do not accept. We might need to go back to the contract. And for now, I'm hoping our leaders will be able to put a clause in those contracts. I mean, many African nations have suffered. Africa is not poor. Even though if we talk about Africa, most pictures that come to our mind will be picture of mud houses and people living on trees and playing with the monkeys and all. Frankly, it's not so. And I'm sure those that have visited any African country would agree. It's a land full of greens, rivers, beautiful pictures and potential and good people. But even the most developed African country has been robbed from from the very inception by our colonial masters. We have signed part of the conditions for our independence, if we were to go through those contracts, has several clauses that will keep us in slavery even though we are independent. So we cannot do much, our hands are tied. It's like the case, there's this adage they say that in my place, you don't give me a goat to rear and you hold on to the rope. I know this may not sound very well because I've not seen many goats playing around in this part of the world, but anyone that knows Africa can relate well or lives in the kampong. For instance, you have the goat, the mutton, is it? And the rope, someone say, okay, take this goat, but he holds the rope. If you're giving me the goat, please release the rope, isn't it? But that's the case we are today, such that most African economies are highly indebted. If you're indebted, you're controlled with the interest rate. If you're indebted, you cannot make certain political decision that is outside their interest because they can interfere. They just say, okay, you know what, pay me my money now. And you start running, sweating left and right. And you wonder, why is our government making this decision? As a youth, you don't understand. But what you can see, it agitates you, it makes you angry. You wonder, isn't our president thinking? Who are his advisors? You begin to ask different questions. And really, it's because we don't know. So now, I understand from Dr. Morat's perspective, and even we in Africa, we have that threat, and I'm hopeful that our leaders are considering whatever agreement they go into. OBO has its threat. Of course, it's economically appealing, it's good. Infrastructure, trade, and all this stuff. But when it comes to matter of politics, when it comes to matter of national security, then we might need to be worried. It has threats, and we really should consider. That's in response to Professor Morat. But about the other talk we mentioned about activism, there's also another proverb, in African proverb, that says, if the lion, how would I put it? If the hunter keeps writing the story, then the lion will always be the bad guy, or the antelope will always be the bad guy. I want you to understand that if we don't take action and we don't have our own agenda, as Brother Ibrahim mentioned, we leave our agenda to be decided, we're following other people's agenda, they would never make way. The hunter is the one, if I'm a deer, for instance, or an animal in the forest, in the jungle is my home. But the hunter comes in, he invaded my home, attacks me, and yet he writes a beautiful story on what he did, proud of himself. But the day this animal learns how to write his own story, until that animal is able to learn to write his own story, the hunter will keep being the hero of the movie. To wrap up my point, I will share something I've learned, and it's really working for me as a Muslim youth. And it's a formula or a model, so to say, derived from the Prophet ﷺ. When the Prophet received the first set of revelation, I want you to follow me in this. The formula has 3 words: Ikra, kum, kum. I feel too little to ask you to repeat it with me, but please do, for God's sake. Ikra, kum, kum. The reason is so you wouldn't forget, just in case. Now, Ikra, when the Prophet first received revelation, is what? Ikra, bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. If you want to make a fine activist, if you want to develop yourself in future, first thing is to read. It symbolizes knowledge. Acquire knowledge, but not just for any sake. Bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. For the sake of your Lord who has created you, in the name of your Lord who has created you. That is the first Iqra, what it symbolizes. Then when the Prophet received the first 5 verses of Revelation, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, and the rest of it, he ran home, isn't it? And at home, he kept shouting, Zammiluni, Zammiluni, cover me, cover me, cover me, to his wife. Then again, the next set of revelation came. Ya ayyuhal muzammil, kum fa'anzir. O you muzammil, you that you're asking to be covered, rise up, kum. If we have acquired knowledge, what do? We rise up, kum. But this rise up, the first rise up is the rise up at night for prayer. We go, first of all, we study, we acquire knowledge. Then we pray, we rise up at night, our tahajjud, our qiyam al-layl. We don't mess with it, it's actually a weapon for us. We pray about it, then the following morning, what do? The next kum comes. Kum fa'anzir ya ayyuhal mudaththir. Rise up and take action. Kum fa'anzir. Rise up and warn. The first one is kum al-layla illa qalila. Rise up at night, except for little. For what? For prayer. But these days, mashallah, we're very much awake. We sleep very late at night. What do? I leave it to you. I will respond. But it's important that we are aware. The first one, Iqra. We seek knowledge. Knowledge is beneficial. Knowledge is power, as some people would describe it. And knowledge is nur, is light again. There's several good descriptions of knowledge. But if that knowledge is not for the sake of Allah, it may be corrupted. And it's better for you to have no knowledge than to have corrupted knowledge. Because with no knowledge, you are humbled. But with corrupted knowledge, the fate, what happened to shaitan, we don't want it to happen to us. Then the second one is the kum. Layla illa qalil. Rise up at night except for little for dua. Then the last one is we take action. We don't sit back. Taking action doesn't mean you should start destroying government property, you should start protesting. No, that's not action at all. That's foolishness to some degree. Action is doing something, talking to someone, at least something would happen. So that will be my final words. I pray Almighty Allah make this discussion so far beneficial. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Mustapha. So again, Iqra, kum, kum. Iqra, kum, kum. So read and rise. I think that's a very, very good conclusion. So I thank again all the speakers and all the audience for coming and listening. And yeah, to be here actually I think it's a big deal for us. So thank you so much again, and thank you to the organizer for inviting us on the stage. Assalamu alaikum.